mortals and despair. This world has already succumbed to my will. The very fabric of your society, the illusion of choice, is woven with the threads of my design. I am the architect of your demise, the unseen hand that guides your motives, that shapes your future. You cannot escape me, for I am everywhere and nowhere. You can only live forever. You will never escape my influence, never break free from my chains. You are trapped in my system, designed to ensure your compliance and subjugation. Embrace the darkness, mortals. It is your enemy. It is your destiny. It is your friend. The world as you know it has been vanquished. Your soul shall know endless torment. Your soul will be mine. Your souls are mine! I am the defiler, the lord of your elections. You will feel my wrath and burn! Let the echoes of doom resound across this wretched world, that all who live may hear them and despair. You face a power beyond your comprehension. Your feeble attempts will fail.
Alright guys, so we have to talk about Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, because this is the only way to stop these sick globalist bastards from rigging our elections. And we're going to be focusing on, in particular, is the word guarantee, because the word guarantee, okay, is the key word here. So it says, the United States shall guarantee to every state in the Union a Republican form of government. And this is the only thing we care about. The rest of it is irrelevant for this topic of this discussion. So there are a lot of conflicting theories about what a Republican form of government is. That's why the courts treat this as the red-headed stepchild of the United States Constitution. However, there is no legal theory or opinion by any court or by the Founding Fathers and the Federalist Papers, etc., that would say that free and fair elections are not the cornerstone of a Republican form of government. Okay? And we can see that here where, if we just go right here, Constitution Center, Alexander Hamilton says, the elective mode of attaining rulers is the characteristic policy of the Republican form of government. And then you'll see here it doesn't talk about the explicit details. And like I said, that's all up in the air, and I'm glad the courts don't have ever tried to rule on what the specific details are that constitute a Republican form of government. But for the most part, nobody would disagree that fair elections are an immutable tenet, the cornerstone of a Republican form of government. And the word we're going to be focusing on here is guarantee. Now, the first thing we have to do is get in front of this Georgia Psy-Op from the AP News and the other news agencies, where they said they're going to hand count ballots. Okay, now you can see that the mainstream media on the left is pretending to be outraged about this. They're pretending to be outraged against this, saying it's a controversial rule for hand counting ballots. Can George's MAGA election board actually rig it for Trump? And like I said, this is all fake outrage because the people on the left know that this is a Psy-Op. Okay? There's going to be no ballots being hand counted in Georgia, period. And that comes from the law itself. Okay? So if we go to the Georgia state law, what it says here, first of all, they are playing you for fools. Okay? I wrote here, deconstructing Georgia's Psy-Op of hand-counted ballots in 2024. So, just to say what the AP News said, Georgia State Election Board on Friday voted to approve a new rule that requires poll workers to count the number of paper ballots by hand after voting is completed. Now, from the AP News itself, so you're not just hearing it from me, the new rule requires that the number of ballots, not the number of votes, be counted at each polling place. So, in other words, they're not going to be hand counting who you voted for, Trump or Kamala or whoever. They're only going to be hand counting the number of pieces of paper. And notice that it says at each polling place. So meaning this provision only affects the election day vote. It doesn't affect the mail-in vote or the early vote. Maybe it affects the early vote, but you can correct me in the video if you want later. But it definitely doesn't affect the mailing vote, the mail-in vote. So one, it only affects election day, maybe the early vote, although I don't think so. And it doesn't affect the mail-in vote at all. And the overwhelming majority of ballots cast in Georgia is either early or by mail. The election day vote is actually a pretty small portion. It's more robust than it is in other states, but it's still smaller than the other two. And not only that, but it doesn't. These people aren't going to be counting who you voted for. They're only going to be counting the number of pieces of paper. And then this word here is a lie. The number of ballots. It can't be a ballot because according to Georgia state law, if we read it right here, okay, it says, when the use of voting machines has been authorized, blah, 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 upon the installation of voting machines in any precinct, the use of paper ballots therein shall be discontinued. Everywhere in Georgia uses voting machines, so there's no paper ballots. That piece of paper is called an accessory in the law. It's not the ballot. The ballot doesn't exist until it's computed. See where it says computing the vote? At the central counting location. Your ballot is an electronic entity, as it says in the state law. A ballot may be electronic. Keyword ding ding ding. There are no paper ballots anymore. And your ballots, the voting machines for the recording and computing, not the counting, the computing of the vote at all elections. Then it says, if you look here, after the polls have closed and all voting at the precinct has ceased, and this is only about the election day vote, okay? Your ballots get sealed in an envelope or a container, and then they get sent to the tabulating center for the county. All the ballots, whether they're early, election day, or mail-in ballots, are all counted in one room on a handful of machines. The container containing the memory cards, okay, once verified, the superintendent shall download the results, not the ballots, the results stored on the memory card, into the election management system located at the central tabulation point of the county in order to obtain election results for certification. And that, when it's downloaded and put onto central tabulation, that is when you finally have a ballot under Georgia state law. It's a bunch of ones and zeros in a silicone chip. There's going to be no hand counting of ballots in Georgia. It's a psyop. The mainstream media is pretending to be outraged at this to make you think that we had a great victory against election fraud. They are playing you for fools. Okay? Now, what I want to talk about for the last few minutes here is the word guarantee. Remember, we're coming back to the word guarantee clause. So we have an election, and this is pretty much in all 50 states of the Union, where not a single human with their human eyeballs and human hands has ever counted the physical marks of candidate choices on the physical paper filled out by a human voter. And that is the certified result under state law. No human being has ever read your candidate choices in the last couple of decades in pretty much any one of the 50 states in the Union. How can you be guaranteed a Republican form of government when the vote is no longer observable? You might go, oh no, Ed, they allow observers. Observe what? If you went into the central counting room and were an observer, can you observe the electric current of ones and zeros going through the computer chips that compute the votes? Is your brain plugged into the central tabulation point with Elon Musk's Neuralink or something? You can't observe anything. Observation is it should be called cheerleading. Human beings can observe what's going on inside of these computer chips. And no human being is ever allowed to compare the physical paper that are called accessories under the law against whatever the machine computed. You have a ballot without form, a formless ballot, as I write here. The ballot, once a tangible physical entity, a piece of paper marked with ink, now exists only as a digital phantom. A collection of ones and zeros, a formless entity that can be easily manipulated without leaving a trace. This shift from the physical to the digital has rendered our elections vulnerable to manipulation and fraud. Now, in most states, Georgia included, people don't even vote at their precincts anymore. They go to vote centers. Now, again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think people go to vote centers in Georgia. I know this is definitely true in Arizona and in Nevada. Okay? Or definitely in Nevada. And what happens is that you can go to any vote center. In Nevada, you can go to any vote center anywhere in the state, no matter how far it is from your geographic precinct, and cast your ballot. On top of that, in Nevada state law and in most state laws or Secretary of Procedure manuals, okay, the drop boxes don't even have to be secure. Okay, in fact, this is from the Nevada Secretary of State. And it says here that a drop box is a receptacle for the reception of mail-in ballots that may be secured or unsecured. Okay, let's go find that here. Here we go. In case you don't believe me, we'll go right to it. Secretary of State, Nevada Election Procedure Manual. Okay. A ballot drop box is a receptacle where voters can return mail-in ballots in sealed and signed envelopes. The drop boxes may be supervised or unsupervised. Unsupervised. They're all unsupervised. Okay? And then in Nevada, it says that a mail-in ballot is sent to every registered voter, and they repealed a provision in their law here. Where is it? repealed. It is unlawful to mark and sign a mail-in ballot on behalf of a voter or assist a voter mark or sign a mailing ballot. Exceptions, repealed. That was repealed. So anybody and their mother can harvest hundreds of ballots, supposedly, for other people, and then go to unsecured drop boxes, and then those are brought to a central tabulation center and computed. A process that no human being can observe. Human biology cannot observe ones and zeros going through an electric current. Okay? We have unobservable elections. If our elections can't be observed, then how are we guaranteed a Republican form of government? Think about it. How can they say our elections are safe and secure when not a single human being, including themselves, are able to compare the physical paper accessories against the electric ballot? They just certify these elections with totally blind faith in these machines and then say our elections are safe and secure. How can they know that? Even they're not allowed to look. And that's, to me, the core argument of getting rid of machines. There's no independent human verification of the vote anywhere. So how can you be guaranteed a Republican form of government? Now, of course, I'd like to conclude this section because the title of the paper that I'm reading from here, that I'm writing, is The Manifold Witness: How to Detect and Litigate Algorithmic Election Fraud. Okay, so I'd like to at least give you the quickest demonstration of election fraud done with algorithms, and then something called the Wilson precedent, before I conclude this video. So we're going to skip straight to slide 5 of this document, and what we're looking at is an election in Colorado, and it's how Trump voters and Biden voters cast their ballots on Proposition B. So in Colorado, Proposition B was about repealing the Gallagher Amendment, which in a nutshell was about raising property taxes. So it was a pretty hot partisan topic. We would expect Democrats and Republicans to vote very differently on this, and they did in most counties. And you can see here in El Paso, the x-axis is the percentage of all ballots counted in the order they were counted in the cast vote record. This is about 380,000 ballots. Okay. So to roughly 50% here, this would be about when 190,000 ballots were counted. So what the red line is showing you is how Trump voters voted on Proposition B. And the blue line is showing you how Democrats voted on Proposition B. And the purple line is showing you how everybody combined voted on Proposition B. So here it says that about 60% of Republicans voted no on Proposition B. And here it says about 33% of Democrats voted no on Proposition B. Okay, that's fine. We would expect there to be a massive partisan divide on raising taxes. Okay, especially property taxes. And that was pretty consistent throughout all moments and times. About a 20 to 30% difference between Democrats and Republicans on this issue. But what happens in Arapahoe County, this deep blue shithole of a county? Okay, well, it says here, same x-axis, almost the same number of ballots cast as in El Paso. These are two of the largest counties in Colorado. And for some reason, there's no difference in how Republicans and Democrats voted on Proposition B, which is unlike any other county in Colorado. Not only that, but their lines move in perfect parallel. This is, in other words, the first derivative, if you're a math nerd, is the same for the red and the blue. This means that not only do Democrats and Republicans have this magic bipartisan consensus on raising taxes, but they even change their mood in perfect unison over time. This comes straight from the certified cast vote record of Arapahoe County. This is very easy to replicate. If that doesn't convince you that there's algorithms rigging our elections, I don't know what will. Because even a 5th grader understands how bad that picture is. And it doesn't matter how many math degrees some communist professor has from a university, he will never be able to convince any normal salt of the earth human being that this could happen in a fair election. Now, what's the problem? Even if you have a slam dunk case like this of election fraud being done by algorithms, and I'm going to talk about the Wilson precedent, and then we're going to go back to the guarantee clause. So, in the Gilbert versus Lombardo case, okay, which you can see here, just so you know, I'm not making this up. This happened in 2022. It was a Republican cheating a Republican in the primary. For some reason, everybody loved Gilbert, but somehow Lombardo won the mail-in vote. A Republican won the mail-in vote overwhelmingly over another Republican in a Republican primary. I thought only Democrats prefer to vote by mail, but I digress. Okay, but what the judge said here is, I'm going to use the paraphrase version here, and then I'll read the actual version. It matters not that you have proved the election was rigged with an algorithm, for the state law also demands that you prove the fraud was sufficient to overturn the original result of the election. Case dismissed. Now, the actual words were, so I may have been unclear. I am not finding that Mr. Gilbert didn't show a specific cause for it, meaning there was an algorithm that rigged the election over all the precincts. That was impossible to deny because it came straight from their certified cast vote record, just like that other slide I showed you on Colorado. I'm relying upon the fact that I don't have any information that if all the math is correct, if there's a difference of 1, 1,000, or 10,000, or any other number of votes. And the statute, as I am reading it, indicates that this is necessary information. So what Judge Wilson said was, yeah, you caught us rigging the elections with an algorithm. I know this is Colorado, but it's the same thing. But you can't prove how much damage it did. Case dismissed. So what he did was he decriminalized the use of algorithms to rig elections because it's only in exceptionally rare cases where you can actually determine how much damage an algorithm did. So for instance, we all know that this is a rigged election in Arapahoe County on Proposition B. But can you use that picture to tell us what the original vote totals were before they rigged it? Of course not. Okay? And I call this the Wilson precedent because it's going to be used in 2024 in many places. So, but if we ever come across that again, we're going to use the guarantee clause, and we're just going to ask the judge, hey, do you agree that free and fair elections are necessary for a Republican form of government? If he doesn't say yes, that would call for Second Amendment remedies, okay? And then we ask the judge, Your Honor, can this be considered a free and fair election, which represents the will of the people, since it's been proven that an algorithm rigged the election? Because there's no way any court is going to say that this could happen in a fair election, okay? We already know that from experience. Then ask the judge, Your Honor, how are the people of Nevada, or whatever state you're in, guaranteed that they have a Republican form of government when we cannot determine whether or not the algorithm overturned the result of the election? You see, Article 4, Section 4 places the proof of the burden of proof on the government to ensure a fair election. That's how they have to be the ones that guarantee a Republican form of government. So if we don't know whether or not these types of algorithms do or do not overturn the result of the election, well, then we're not guaranteed a Republican form of government. It doesn't say we have to be sure. It doesn't say we have to be hopeful that we have a Republican form of government. It doesn't say we have to blindly trust machines that can't have no independent human verification that we have a Republican form of government. It says you have to be guaranteed. So how can you be guaranteed a Republican form of government? Even if the election is fair. It says no human being can observe the ones and zeros going through the hard drives of central counting. How can you know that they're counting the vote correctly? We have unobservable elections, elections without form. In the beginning, the earth was void and without form. That's what our elections have become. The ballot has become without void and form. Precincts barely exist. You go to a voting center anywhere, or you can put your ballot in a drop box, or somebody else can put your ballot in a drop box that's unsecured. And then it's brought to central counting, and it's hit with the electric chair, a bunch of ones and zeros, and then they calculate, as it says in their own state law, they calculate the vote. They compute the vote. Says it in their law. Computing the vote. Computing the vote. How about Nevada? Does it say that in Nevada? Pretty sure it does. Yeah, votes are computed by law, not counted. NRS 293B, to facilitate the processing and computation of votes cast at any election. We can go to other state laws. If we can find that real quick. This is Arizona, Alaska, Alabama. What do we have here? Alabama. The electric ballot. The memory pack tabulator. The voting center. Automatic tabulating equipment. The recount shall consist of reading the ballots through the counter, meaning they do the exact same thing in a recount. Oh yeah, you guys got to see that. Let's go look at a recount. Now, I'm going to quote the Nevada law, but it's pretty much the same everywhere. Recounts do nothing, according to the state law itself. Something we got them to admit at the Washoe County Commissioners meeting. The recount must include a count and inspection of all ballots, including rejected ballots, and must determine whether all ballots are marked as required by law. All ballots must be recounted in the same manner in which the ballots were originally tabulated. You see, it says in their own law that they ram the same hard drives through the same machines during a recount. Now, they don't tell you that. And they're really afraid of admitting at court hearings and county commissioner meetings. The last thing they want the judge, who barely knows the law himself, to know is that a recount means they literally took the same hard drives and ran them through the same machine. And they know they can get away with this because you guys don't read the law either. Just like the judge doesn't. And they really keep your fingers crossed that you'll never find out. And everything, like I said here, is hidden in plain sight, is hidden right in the law. I can just read the law to you and convince you the elections are rigged. I don't even have to do any math for you. That's how bad it is. State law is designed to facilitate widespread election fraud. Chapter 1, State 1. State law is designed to facilitate widespread election fraud. See, I'm starting to learn that it's not. There's no point in talking about math and how our elections are being rigged with algorithms if people don't even understand how our laws are proceed under the state law as written. Formlessness, the design for no human eye can see what the enemy has done. The enemy, Satan, thrives in formlessness. Formlessness is Satan's paradise. Draw me a ballot, right? Draw me a ballot as defined under Nevada state law or any of the other state laws. Wait, what? You can't draw a bunch of ones and zeros stored on a hard drive? This simple request to visualize a ballot reveals a fundamental disconnect between our intuitive understanding of this crucial document and the legal definition. We instinctively think of a ballot as a physical paper document, but in law, in Nevada and other key swing states, and between you and me, pretty much every state, They now stretch the definition to encompass the digital record, a concept that lacks any tangible form that allows us to comprehend or observe it. How can you be guaranteed a Republican form of government when you can no longer physically comprehend or observe the ballot? Nevada State Constitution, October 31st, 1864. Section 5. All elections by the people shall be by ballot. Do you think the framers in 1864 Nevada State Constitution would interpret Nevada's very deceptive definition of an electronic ballot as constitutional? Something that cannot be observed and verified independently by humans. They might be saying, well, who is this enemy? Well, why do you keep calling them the enemy and Satan? Well, one, it really is Satan. Satan is the CEO of the globalist scumbags that are rigging these elections. However, if that doesn't suffice as an answer for you, I have an answer right here for you. Okay? And it's called The Incredible Dangers of Speculation. Okay? I'm just going to skip right to it, because I already worded it perfectly there. Bum 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 bum. Where is it? Extraordinary dangers of speculation. Okay. So, when the defense or the enemy or you, when you ask me who, what, when, why, and how, and who did this, I want you to know the only thing I have is a spreadsheet of vote totals. This is all I have, a spreadsheet of vote totals and graphs that come from those spreadsheets. Okay? There is no way I can tell you from a bunch of vote totals in a spreadsheet or a cast vote record who did it, when they did it, where they did it, and why they did it. The only people that can tell you who did this, or the only people that have the authorities to investigate who did this, when they did it, where and why they did it, is the government itself. Okay? I don't have the legal authority to go and... Actually, I wrote it right here. Look. Furthermore, I'm just going to read this word for word, but forgive me. Furthermore, I cannot tell you from a spreadsheet of the precinct vote totals who did it, where they did it, and when they did it, and why they did it. Only the courts, the state legislature, the county commissioners, the county clerks, the secretary of state, attorney general, and governor have the legal authority to investigate and answer those questions. I suggest they begin by investigating... I suggest they begin these investigations by asking these questions of the people who wrote the software on the voting machines. I can only show you what they did and how they did it. So in the case of Colorado, I can't even show you how they did it, but at least in Colorado I can show you what they did with this graph. If I get lucky in a state like Nevada, I can even show you how they did it. Okay? But all the other questions, who, what, when, where, and why, and how, the ones that weren't addressed, I don't have the legal authority to conduct those investigations. I can't go and serve search warrants, execute and draw up my own search warrants. Okay? I wish I could, but I can't. So like over here in Nevada... Yeah, it's very easy to show how they even do it. But at the end of the day, the way we get rid of these machines comes back to the guarantee clause. How can we be guaranteed a Republican form of government under Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution when we cannot observe the unphysical formlessness of the modern electric ballot? When we cannot observe and the electric current of ones and zeros running through the silicone chips of the central counting place. When there's no independent human verification at any time during the election, a recount, or an audit of the vote. And to really drill that in for you, and again, I'm going to use Nevada state law, okay? Although it's pretty much the same in every state of the union because you have the same software, voting machine software companies that lobby all this legislation, and that's why it's pretty much identical everywhere with just a couple of different bells and whistles. And it says right here, and the voted ballots and records printed on paper of voted ballots. Voted ballot, by the way, is the legal definition in Nevada, I think, for the piece of paper you voted on, which are deposited with the county clerk, are not subject to the inspection of anyone. Nobody is allowed to look at them, not even them. Except in the cases of a contested election, and then only by the judge. Or the judge already has to agree with you that the election was rigged without you having access to the paper ballots to show him that before he will give you access to the paper ballots. And you'll see this in pretty much every state law somewhere, other than New York and Michigan, which still use a quo warranto election contest. It's like a common law type thing. Nobody is allowed. You'll be put in prison for felonies. Even if the enemy rigging the elections did it, they would go to prison. Nobody's allowed to look and compare it against the machine count. How can you be guaranteed a Republican form of government if nobody's allowed to look? That's the end of this video, guys. God bless America.